Hello everyone, and welcome back to When She Broke Us channel. Today, we have an incredible story, one that's dark, emotional, and shocking. It's a story about betrayal, humiliation, and the kind of heartbreak that leaves scars you can't see. We're sitting down with a man whose story will take you through a whirlwind of emotions, and I promise you, this is one you won't be able to look away from. From the first moment, through the betrayal, to the shocking aftermath, this is raw, unfiltered truth. So sit tight, make sure you're not alone for this one, and hear it straight from him. Let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us your name and a little about yourself, and then share your story with us?
She said, "Don't wait up tonight." I replied, "Tell Mark I said hi." She froze. I've replayed that moment 1,000 times in my head, watching Sarah's face drain of color like someone pulled a plug. Her coffee mug hovered halfway to her lips, suspended in that awful silence that stretched between us. The kitchen suddenly felt too bright, too ordinary for what was happening. The morning sun still streamed through our bay windows, hitting the granite countertops we'd picked out together 3 years ago. The coffee maker still gurgled. The neighbor's dog still barked. But everything had changed. "What did you just say?" Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I leaned against the doorframe, surprised by how calm I felt. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the relief of finally saying it out loud after weeks of suspicion gnawing at my insides. "Mark, you're AP, fair partner. That's what they call it online, right? I've been doing my research." The mug hit the counter with a crack. Coffee sloshed over the rim, spreading across the white surface like a stain we'd never quite get out. Sarah's hands were shaking. "Jake, I don't know what you think you know, but nothing." I surprised myself with the edge in my voice. "I know about the late meetings, the new perfume you only wear on Thursdays, the way you angle your phone away from me, the smile you get when you text him. I'm a software engineer, which means I spend my days looking for patterns in code, finding the bugs, the inconsistencies. I'd been debugging our marriage for 2 months without even realizing it. Every glitch, every anomaly, every line that didn't compile. I documented it all in my head with the same methodical precision I used at work." Sarah's face shifted through emotions like someone flipping channels. Shock, fear, anger, then something else. Something I couldn't quite read. She sat down heavily in one of our kitchen chairs, the one that always wobbled slightly. I'd been meaning to fix it for months. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "Does it matter?" "Yes." She looked up at me, and I was startled to see tears in her eyes. "Yes, it matters." I pulled out the chair across from her, that small distance of 4 feet feeling like an ocean. "I found the receipt from the Riverside in 2 weeks ago. You told me you were at a team-building event in Denver. But the receipt was from here, from a hotel 20 minutes from our house." "Jake!" I called the hotel, asked if a Sarah Mitchell had stayed there on April 16th. They couldn't confirm due to privacy, but the woman on the phone got quiet in this specific way, like she was confirming it without confirming it. Then I checked our credit card. "You didn't charge it, which means someone else did." Sarah's face was in her hands now. Her shoulders shook. Part of me wanted to reach across that small ocean and comfort her. 9 years of marriage don't just evaporate, even when you're sitting in the wreckage of them. But I stayed in my chair, watching this woman I thought I knew completely fall apart. "I never meant for this to happen," she said through her fingers. "That's what they always say, isn't it? Like affairs are natural disasters, acts of God. Things that just happen to people rather than choices made in a series of moments. But I didn't say that. I was too busy trying to keep my own composure, feeling that weird calmness start to crack at the edges." "Who is he?" I asked. "This Mark." She looked up, her mascara running in thin black lines down her cheeks. "How did you know his name?" "Your car. You left your GPS history on. I saw all those trips to Riverside Parkway, so I drove there one Thursday afternoon. Watched you walk into that coffee shop, the one with the green awning. I watched you meet him. I could still see it clearly. Sarah in her gray blazer, the one she said made her feel powerful. Walking quickly, nervously, checking her phone. Then a man approaching. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair going silver at the temples. Expensive suit. They didn't hug, didn't kiss, just sat across from each other at a corner table, close enough that their knees probably touched under it. They talked for an hour. I watched her laugh at something he said, touching her throat the way she used to touch it when I made her laugh, back when I could still do that. Mark Davidson, Sarah said quietly. He's a consultant. His firm was contracted at my company 6 months ago. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of coming home to me and pretending everything was fine. Half a year of kissing me goodnight while thinking about someone else. Are you in love with him? The question came out harder than I intended. Sarah's eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw something flicker there. Not the answer I expected. Not defiance or shame or even sadness. Something else. Something that looked almost like fear. It's complicated, she whispered. It's really not. Jake, please. There are things you don't understand. Things I need to explain. So explain. I crossed my arms, trying to maintain that artificial calm while my insides churned. I'm listening. She stood up suddenly, pacing to the window, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. What if I told you Mark wasn't the problem? What's that supposed to mean? She turned to face me, and her expression had shifted again. The tears were gone. Her jaw was set in this determined way I recognized from whenever she was about to tell me something I didn't want to hear. It means you're right about everything and wrong about everything at the same time. Stop talking in riddles, Sarah. I'm not having an affair with Mark. She said it clearly, deliberately, watching my face for reaction. I laughed. Actually laughed. I saw you with him. I found the hotel receipt. I've been watching you lie to me for weeks. I know. You're right about all of that. She moved closer, her hands clasped in front of her like she was praying. But I'm not having an affair with him. Mark is God. There's no easy way to say this. Just say it. Mark is your brother. The words hit me like a physical thing. I actually felt my chest constrict, my breath catch. What? Mark Davidson is your half-brother. From before your father married your mother. Jake. He's been looking for you for 3 years. I stood up so fast my chair tipped backward, clattering against the tile. That's impossible. That's insane. Why would you? Your father had an affair before you were born, with a woman named Patricia Davidson. She got pregnant, had a son, Mark. He's 41, 7 years older than you. Your father abandoned them both before Mark was born. My head was spinning. I gripped the edge of the counter, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. My father, Richard Mitchell, died 4 years ago from a heart attack. Lived his whole life in Minnesota, married to my mother for 42 years before he died. Devoted husband, good father, boring accountant who did the Times crossword every Sunday and grilled burgers every 4th of July. You're lying. But even as I said it, I felt something shift. Some fundamental truth rearranging itself in my chest. I wish I was. Sarah's voice was gentle now. Mark hired a private investigator 2 years ago. Found your father's obituary. Found you. He wanted to meet you, but he didn't know how. So when his firm got contracted at my company, and he saw my last name and looked me up and realized I was married to you, he reached out to me. Why wouldn't he just contact me directly? He was afraid. She stepped closer. Afraid you'd reject him. Afraid of disrupting your life. He knew about your father's death. Knew it might bring up painful things. So he asked me to prepare you. To see if you'd be open to meeting him. I slid down the cabinet until I was sitting on the floor, my head in my hands. This can't be real. I have documents, letters, photos of your father with Patricia. Mark looks like him, Jake. He has his eyes. Your eyes. So the hotel. Mark stays there when he's in town. We've been meeting there because it's private. Because he wanted to show me everything before I showed you. Birth certificates. DNA tests he had done with a cousin on your father's side. Everything. The Thursdays. He flies in from Seattle every other Thursday for work. We'd meet to go through more documents to plan how to tell you. The texts were about you, about whether the timing was right, about whether you could handle it. I looked up at her. This woman I'd been so sure was betraying me. Why didn't you just tell me? Sarah slid down the cabinet next to me, our shoulders touching. I tried, so many times, but you seemed so stressed with the promotion at work. And then your mom had that health scare. And then, I don't know, the longer I waited, the harder it became. And Mark kept saying we should wait for the right moment. There's never a right moment for something like this. I know that now. We sat there on our kitchen floor, the morning sun shifting across the tiles, and I felt like I was falling through space. Everything I thought I knew was wrong. My father had a secret. I had a brother. My wife wasn't cheating on me, but she'd been lying to me for 6 months about something arguably worse. I'm sorry, Sarah said quietly. I handled this all wrong. I thought I was protecting you. From what? From being hurt. From having to redefine who your father was. Who you are. That wasn't your choice to make. I know. I turned to look at her. Really look at her. Is there anything else? Any other secrets you've been keeping to protect me? She hesitated. That hesitation lasted a beat too long. Sarah, there's something Mark told me. Something about why your father left them. Tell me. Your grandfather. Your dad's father. He found out about the affair. About the pregnancy. He threatened to disinherit your father if he didn't end it. Leave Patricia. Pretend it never happened. I remembered my grandfather. Cold, rigid William Mitchell with his steel-gray eyes and his opinions about everything. Died when I was 12. Left my father everything. The money that paid for my college. The money that helped us buy this house. So my father chose money over his son. He was 23 years old, scared, under enormous pressure. He had 40 years to make it right, 40 years to find Mark, to tell the truth. I know. Did my mother know? Sarah's silence was answer enough. Jesus Christ. I pulled away from her, standing up. Everyone knew. Everyone except me. I'm the only one living in this fantasy where my parents were good people. Jake, don't. I held up my hand. I need time to process this. Mark wants to meet you. When you're ready. I'm not ready. I might never be ready. I left the kitchen, walked upstairs to our bedroom, and sat on the edge of the bed we'd shared for 9 years. The bed where we'd made love and made plans and made promises. Where we'd held each other through bad dreams and good news and everything in between. Where she'd lain next to me for 6 months knowing something that would shatter my entire understanding of who I was. I pulled out my phone and did what any 34-year-old man does in a crisis. I Googled Mark Davidson, Seattle consultant. His LinkedIn photo was the first result. And Sarah was right. He had my father's eyes. My eyes. That same slightly crooked nose. The same way of holding his head tilted just slightly to the left. I was looking at a stranger who was also somehow looking at myself. I scrolled through his profile. University of Washington. MBA from Stanford. Senior consultant at Bridgewater Strategic Solutions. Married to someone named Rachel. 2 kids. A whole life lived parallel to mine, unknown. There was a work email listed. I stared at it for a long time. Then I heard Sarah on the stairs. She knocked softly before opening the door. Jake. I'm looking at him. At Mark. She sat down beside me, looking at my phone screen. He seems like a good person. Successful. Kind. He's nervous about meeting you. Why should I care if he's nervous? Because he's your brother. He's a stranger. Both things can be true. I set my phone down. I accused you of having an affair. I've been suspicious and cold for weeks. You must have been so hurt. I understood why you thought what you thought. I was acting suspicious. I was lying. Just not about what you thought. I don't know how to forgive this. The lying, I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I'm asking you to think about meeting Mark. Why? What difference would it make? My father is dead. I can't confront him. I can't ask him why. Meeting Mark just makes it all real. Sarah took my hand. It's already real, Jake. You can ignore it, but that doesn't make it go away. And Mark, he's been carrying this his whole life. Growing up without a father. Knowing his father chose another family over him. He could be angry. He could be bitter. But he just wants to know his brother. How do you know that? How can you be sure he doesn't want something? Money? Revenge? Because I've spent 6 months getting to know him. He doesn't want anything from you except a chance. Just one chance to sit down and talk. I pulled my hand away. I need to think. Okay. Alone. Sarah nodded and stood up. I'll be downstairs. I'm taking the day off work. Whatever you need. After she left, I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling fan going around and around and around. I thought about my father. About the man I'd known versus the man he actually was. About choices and consequences. About secrets that ripple through generations. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Call me when you have a chance. Love you. Did she know I knew? Had Sarah called her? Or was this just coincidence? With my mother, you could never tell. Evelyn Mitchell had raised passive-aggressiveness to an art form. I didn't call her. Instead, I opened my laptop and started searching. Patricia Davidson. I found an obituary from 2019. Died of breast cancer at 63. She'd been a teacher. Lived in Seattle her whole life. Never married. In the obituary, she was survived by her son, Mark, his wife Rachel, and grandchildren Emma and Tyler. I found her Facebook page, still active. Friends and former students had written memorials on her wall. She was the kindest person I ever knew. Mrs. Davidson changed my life. She gave everything to her son. There were photos. Patricia was beautiful. Blonde, blue-eyed, with a bright smile. In one photo, probably from the 70s, she stood in front of a classroom, young and hopeful. In another from the 90s, she had her arm around a teenage boy, Mark. He was lanky and awkward, wearing a soccer uniform, grinning at the camera. She looked at him with such love it was almost painful to see. She'd raised him alone, on a teacher's salary, while my father lived comfortably in Minnesota, building his accounting practice, raising me, pretending his firstborn son didn't exist. I felt sick. I spent the next 3 hours in that room going down internet rabbit holes. I found articles Mark had written for business publications, photos from conferences, his wedding announcement from 15 years ago, a charity 5K he'd organized in his mother's name after she died. I found his kids' names. Emma was 12. Tyler was 9. These were my niece and nephew. These children I'd never met. Would never have known existed if Sarah hadn't been lying to me. Around noon, I went downstairs. Sarah was in the living room, curled up on the couch with her laptop, pretending to work. She looked up when I entered, her face cautious. I want to see everything, I said. All the documents. All the proof. She closed her laptop immediately. Okay, it's all in my office. I'll get it. She returned with a manila folder, thick with papers. We sat at the dining room table, and she spread them out like evidence at a trial, which, in a way, it was. Birth certificate for Mark Richard Davidson. Born March 15, 1984. Mother, Patricia Lynn Davidson. Father, Richard James Mitchell. My father's name, right there. Undeniable. There were letters. Not many. Just 3. Handwritten on yellowed paper. The first dated April 1984. Pat, I'm sorry. You know I am. But my father is right. I'm too young for this. We both are. You'll be better off without me. You're strong. You'll be fine. I'll send money when I can. Richard. The second letter, dated June 1984. Please stop calling my parents' house. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I've moved on. You should too. The third letter, no date. I don't know if you'll ever give this to him, but if you do, tell Mark I'm sorry. Tell him I was a coward. Tell him I thought about him every day. That last line broke something in me. He'd thought about Mark every day while tucking me in at night, while teaching me to ride a bike, while sitting across from me at dinner, asking about my day. There were photos. My father, young and handsome, with Patricia. They looked happy, in love. like every cliché young couple in every old photograph. And then there were the DNA results. Mark had found a second cousin on my father's side through one of those ancestry websites. Submitted his DNA. The match was conclusive. "This is all real," I said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. My whole life is built on a lie. Your life is real. Your father loved you. Your mother loves you. That's not a lie. But it's not the whole truth either." Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. This time I let her. "So what do you want to do?" I looked at the documents spread out before us. Evidence of betrayal. Evidence of cowardice. Evidence of a brother I'd never known I had. "I want to meet him. Really. I need to look him in the eye. I need to hear his story. I need to understand." Sarah squeezed my hand. "I'll call him. He can fly down this weekend if that works for you." "No." I pulled my hand back. "I'll email him. Myself. This needs to be between me and him." "Okay." I went back upstairs and opened my laptop. Stared at the blank email for 15 minutes. Finally, I started typing. "Mark, my wife told me everything. I don't know what to say except that I'm sorry. Sorry for what my father did to you and your mother. Sorry you've had to carry this alone. Sorry I didn't know about you sooner. I'd like to meet you, to talk, to try to understand. If you're still willing. Jake." I hit send before I could overthink it. Then I sat there, staring at my inbox, refreshing every 30 seconds like a teenager waiting for a text back. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Seattle area code. I answered. "Hello, Jake." The voice was deep, warm, nervous. "It's Mark." And just like that, everything changed again. "Hi." My own voice sounded strange to me. "Thanks for calling. I got your email. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes trying to figure out what to say." He laughed awkwardly. "I practiced this conversation 1,000 times, and now I'm completely blanking." "Me too." "Sarah said she told you. About our father. About me." "Yeah." There was a pause. I could hear him breathing. "I'm sorry. This must be such a shock. You're apologizing to me? I'm the one with the family that abandoned you. That wasn't your fault. You were born a year after he left my mom. You didn't even exist yet." Still. Another pause. Then Mark said, "Do you want to know why I finally decided to reach out? After all these years." "Why?" "My daughter, Emma. She's 12 now. She asked me about my father last year. About her grandfather. And I had to tell her I didn't know him. That he'd left before I was born. And she asked me if that made me sad. And I realized, yeah, it does. It has made me sad my whole life. And I didn't want to die never knowing if I had family out there. Never knowing my brother. The word brother hit me hard. I'd been an only child my entire life. Defined myself partly by that. The only son. The only heir. The center of my parents' universe. "I don't know how to be a brother," I admitted. "Me neither. But maybe we can figure it out together. Maybe. Could I come visit? This weekend? I know it's fast, but I have a feeling if we don't do this now, it might never happen." He was right. The momentum could easily fade. The shock could harden into resentment. The opportunity could slip away. "Saturday," I said. "Come Saturday. We can meet somewhere neutral. Coffee shop or something. There's a place called the Riverside Cafe. That's where I met Sarah. Would that be too weird? Let's make it somewhere else. Somewhere that isn't loaded with history. How about Riverside Park? By the fountains. 2 o'clock. Okay. Okay." He sounded relieved. "Jake." "Yeah. Thank you for giving me a chance." After we hung up, I sat there feeling oddly hollow. Like I just agreed to something monumental but couldn't quite process what. I went downstairs to find Sarah in the kitchen, making sandwiches she probably didn't expect either of us to eat. "He called," I said. She turned hopeful. "And we're meeting Saturday. Riverside Park." "That's good. That's really good, Jake." "Is it? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to say to him." "Hey. Sorry our dad was a deadbeat. Nice to meet you. Brother I never knew existed? Sarah set down the knife and came over to me. You just be honest. That's all you can do. What if I can't forgive my father? What if meeting Mark just makes me hate him more? Then you deal with that. But you can't let your feelings about your father prevent you from knowing Mark. They're separate things. Are they though? She didn't answer because we both knew they weren't. How I felt about my father would color everything about my relationship with Mark. The ghost of Richard Mitchell would be sitting between us forever. The next few days were strange. I went to work but couldn't focus. My coworkers asked if I was okay. I said I had the flu. Easier than explaining that my entire identity had been upended. That I was experiencing a fundamental crisis of self. Thursday evening, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again Friday morning. Again Friday evening. Finally, Friday night, I answered. Jacob Mitchell, you've been avoiding me. Her voice was sharp. Hi, Mom. Sarah said you've been under the weather. Are you coming down with something? So Sarah hadn't told her. I felt a flash of gratitude mixed with anger. Grateful that I got to control this conversation. Angry that I had to have it at all. Mom, I need to ask you something. What's wrong? You sound serious. Did you know about Mark? The silence on the other end was answer enough. Long, heavy, damning silence. Mom, how did you find out? Her voice had changed. Smaller. Guilty. So you did know. Jake, please, answer the question. Did you know Dad had another son? Yes. The word came out as barely a whisper. How long? From the beginning. Richard told me before we got married. About Patricia. About the baby. About his father's ultimatum. He said it was behind him. That he'd made his choice and would never look back. And you were okay with that? With him abandoning his child? I was 22 years old and in love. I didn't think about it the way you're thinking about it now. Richard was devastated. Torn apart by the decision. But his father was adamant and we needed that money. We wouldn't have had anything without it. You could have worked. You both could have worked. You could have made it work without his father's blood money. Don't judge me from your comfortable life that our choices made possible. Her anger surprised me. I'd never heard my mother raise her voice like that. Did you ever think about him? I asked quietly. About Mark. Another long pause. Sometimes, especially after you were born, I'd wonder what he looked like. If he was okay. If he hated us. He doesn't hate us. But he should. Jake. I'm meeting him tomorrow. He's my brother, Mom. And you and Dad kept him from me my entire life. We were protecting you. From what? From exactly what you're feeling right now. From having to choose between loving your father and hating what he did. From carrying the guilt that wasn't yours to carry. You don't get to make those decisions for me. I'm not a child. You'll always be my child. I hung up. Maybe it was cruel. Maybe it was immature. But I couldn't listen to her rationalizations anymore. Couldn't hear her justify the unjustifiable. Saturday came too quickly and too slowly at the same time. I barely slept Friday night. Sarah offered to come with me to meet Mark. But I said no. This was something I needed to do alone. I got to Riverside Park at 1:30, way too early. I sat on a bench by the fountain, watching families with their kids, couples walking dogs, old men playing chess. Normal people living normal lives without their foundations crumbling beneath them. At exactly 2 o'clock, I saw him, Mark Davidson, walking toward me with his hands in his pockets, looking as nervous as I felt. He was taller than I expected, better dressed. He wore dark jeans and a blue button-down, casual but put together. His hair was darker than mine, but when he got close, I saw it. The resemblance, not just the eyes, the shape of his face, the way he walked. We were clearly related. Jake. He stopped a few feet away. Yeah. Hi. I stood up awkwardly. Should we shake hands? Hug? What's the protocol for meeting your secret brother? He solved the problem by extending his hand. We shook. His grip was firm. Thanks for meeting me, he said. Thanks for calling. We sat down on the bench, leaving a careful space between us. The fountain burbled. A kid shrieked with laughter somewhere behind us. Mark stared at his hands. I don't know where to start, he admitted. Me neither. Maybe I should start with, I'm not here for money or revenge or anything like that. Sarah probably told you that, but I want to say it myself. I have a good life, a great wife, amazing kids. I don't need anything from you except to know you. Okay. I spent a lot of years angry at our father. At the idea of him. I used to fantasize about confronting him, telling him off, making him feel guilty. Mark looked up at me. But after my mom died, I realized that anger was just hurting me. He was already dead by then. For years dead. I'd missed my chance to ever talk to him. I'm sorry about your mom. She was incredible. Raised me alone. Never badmouthed our father, even though she had every right to. She just said he was young and scared and made a mistake. She said the best revenge was living a good life. He smiled sadly. She was a better person than I am. She sounds amazing. She was. Mark pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Patricia Davidson at a beach somewhere, laughing, her hair blowing in the wind. Behind her, younger Mark with his arm around a woman I assumed was Rachel. 2 kids building a sandcastle. This was 2 months before she died. We didn't know then. She'd just gotten the diagnosis but hadn't told us yet. I stared at the photo. This family I'd never known. This life that had run parallel to mine. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you. She always hoped that someday we'd find each other. Did she know about me? That Dad had another family? Yeah. He sent her a letter when you were born. Said he had a son. That he was sorry but he could never acknowledge Mark because it would destroy his new family. Mom kept that letter. I have it if you want to see it. Maybe later. We sat in silence for a while. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to a brother who shouldn't exist but does? Can I ask you something? Mark said finally. Sure. What was he like? Our father. And there it was. The question I'd been dreading. Because how do you tell someone that the man who abandoned them was a good father to you? That he was patient and kind and present? That he never missed a baseball game or a school play? That you loved him? He was good to me, I said carefully. He was present. Involved. He taught me to fish and helped me with homework and told terrible dad jokes. Mark nodded slowly. That's good. I'm glad he was good to you. But knowing what I know now, it doesn't feel like enough. How can someone be a good father to one child and completely abandon another? People are complicated. They compartmentalize. They justify. Did you ever try to contact him? Before he died. Once. When I was 18. I looked him up. Found his accounting firm in Minnesota. I drove there, actually. Sat in the parking lot for 2 hours, working up the courage to go in. Finally, I saw him leave for lunch. He walked right past my car. I could have rolled down the window, called out to him, but I just froze. And he walked away. And I never tried again. Jesus. I told myself it was because I didn't want to disrupt his life. But really, I was terrified he'd reject me again. That he'd look at me and feel nothing. Mark's voice cracked slightly. It's pathetic, right? A grown man desperate for his father's approval. It's not pathetic. It's human. We talked for 3 hours. About his life in Seattle, his work, his family. About my life here, my marriage, my job. We found common ground. We both liked old movies and terrible puns and hiking. We both hated olives and small talk and people who don't use turn signals. Small things. Stupid things. But they mattered. As the sun started to set, Mark checked his watch. I should get going. I have a flight back tonight. Already? I told Rachel I'd be home for Emma's soccer game tomorrow morning. She's the goalie. Takes after me. I was terrible at soccer. I smiled. I was terrible at sports in general. Really? Dad wasn't athletic. Not at all. He preferred books and chess. Mark grinned. So do I. We should play sometime. Chess, I mean. I'd like that. We stood up. This time when Mark extended his hand, I ignored it and hugged him instead. It was awkward and brief, but it was real. "Thank you for giving me a chance," he said. "Thank you for finding me." He pulled back and looked at me seriously. "I know this is a lot, and I know you probably need time to process everything. But I hope we can stay in touch. Maybe I could come back next month? You could meet Rachel and the kids. I'd like that. And maybe Sarah and I could come to Seattle sometime. See where you grew up." Mom would have loved that. His eyes got watery. She used to tell me that someday I'd have a brother. That family would find a way. After he left, I sat back down on the bench and watched the fountain until the park lights came on. I felt emptied out but also strangely full. Like something I didn't know was missing had clicked into place. When I got home, Sarah was waiting in the living room, trying to pretend she wasn't anxiously watching for me. "How did it go?" she asked. "It went well. Really well, actually." Yeah. I sat down next to her. "He's a good guy. I like him." "And Sarah?" "What?" "I'm still angry at you. For lying. For keeping this from me. For thinking you knew better than me what I could handle. I know. But I also understand why you did it. And I'm grateful that Mark found us. Found me. So I'm angry and grateful. And I don't know how to reconcile those things yet." "That's fair." I took her hand. "We need to go to counseling. We need to work through this. The lying. The trust issues. All of it. I'll call someone Monday. And I need you to promise me. No more secrets. No more protecting me from things you think will hurt me. I'm a grown man. I can handle the truth. I promise." We sat there holding hands. Two people trying to find their way back to each other through the wreckage of good intentions and bad choices. The next morning I called my mother. She answered on the first ring. "Jake. I met him yesterday. Mark." She was quiet for a moment. "How did it go?" "It went well. He's a good person, Mom. Kind. Successful. Has a beautiful family. Everything Dad missed out on." "Jake. I'm not calling to fight. I'm calling because I need you to understand something. Mark is my brother. He's going to be part of my life now. And if you can't accept that, then we're going to have a problem." "I never said I couldn't accept it. You've spent 34 years pretending he didn't exist. That's going to have to change." Another long silence. Then, quietly, "What was he like when you met him?" And that's when I realized something. My mother had carried this secret too. Had wondered about Mark just like I had after finding out. Had maybe even felt guilty about the life she'd built on the foundation of his abandonment. "He has Dad's smile," I said. "And his voice. It was like talking to a ghost, but also like talking to someone I'd known my whole life." I heard her breath catch. "I'd like to meet him. Someday. If he'd be willing. I'll ask him. And Jake? I am sorry. For all of it. For not being brave enough to tell you. For letting your father's choices become my choices. I was young and scared and selfish. I know, Mom. But I never stopped loving you. You know that, right?" "Yeah, I know." After I hung up, Sarah came into the room with coffee. She handed me a mug and sat down beside me on the couch. "Your mom?" she asked. "Yeah. She wants to meet Mark." "That's good." "Is it? I don't know anymore what's good or bad or right or wrong. Everything's just complicated." Sarah nodded. "Welcome to being an adult. Nothing's ever simple." Over the next few weeks, Mark and I talked regularly. Texts at first, then phone calls, then video chats where I met Rachel and the kids. Emma was sharp and funny, asking me 1,000 questions about what her dad was like as a kid, even though I had no answers. Tyler was quieter, more serious, but he warmed up when I mentioned I played video games. "You should come visit," Rachel said during one call. "The kids would love to show you around Seattle." "We're actually planning a trip next month," Sarah chimed in from beside me. "If that works for you guys?" And just like that, we had plans. A future. A relationship that was growing from nothing into something real. But there was still one thing that haunted me. One question I couldn't shake. 3 weeks after meeting Mark, I drove to Minnesota. To my parents' old house, which my mother still lived in. To the attic, where my father's things were stored in boxes I'd been avoiding since his death 4 years ago. My mother watched from the doorway as I pulled down box after box. searching. "What are you looking for?" she asked. "I don't know. Answers, maybe. Some explanation that makes sense of all this." I found it in the third box, a shoebox hidden under old tax returns. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Mark Davidson, all with return to sender stamped on them in Patricia's handwriting. Letters my father had written over the years, birthday cards never sent, Christmas cards returned unopened, attempts at contact that had been rejected. "Oh God," my mother whispered from behind me. "I didn't know he kept those." I opened one dated from Mark's 10th birthday. "Dear Mark, I hope you're well. I think about you every day. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to be your father. I hope someday you can forgive me, Dad." Another from his high school graduation. "I saw your name in the Seattle Times graduation list. I'm so proud of you. I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have been there for everything." Letter after letter, year after year. My father reaching out, being rejected, but never stopping. Never giving up completely, even if he'd given up in every way that actually mattered. "Did you know he was doing this?" I asked my mother. "No, he never told me. I thought he'd moved on completely." "He never moved on. He just pretended to. For you. For me. For his father's money and approval." I looked up at her. "He was miserable, wasn't he? Deep down, under all the dad jokes and the crossword puzzles and the grilled burgers." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "I think a part of him was always somewhere else. With them. With the family he'd abandoned. But he was also here, Jake. With us. He loved you completely." "Did he love you?" She thought about it for a long moment. "I think he loved the life we built. The stability. The normalcy. Whether that's the same as loving me, I don't know anymore." I gathered up all the letters. "Mark needs to see these. Are you sure? They might just hurt him more. He deserves to know that our father tried. Even if he failed. Even if it was too little, too late." 2 days later, I was on a plane to Seattle with a shoebox full of letters that would change everything Mark thought he knew about our father. Mark picked me up from the airport. It was strange how normal it already felt, seeing him waiting at arrivals, like we'd been doing this our whole lives instead of just a few weeks. "Sarah couldn't come?" he asked as we headed to his car. "She wanted to give us space. Brother time," she called it. "Rachel's excited to meet her next time." We drove to his house in Ballard, a beautiful craftsman with a view of the Sound. Rachel greeted me with a warm hug, and the kids showed me their rooms, their toys, their artwork. Normal family stuff that felt extraordinary because it was happening at all. After dinner, after the kids were in bed, the three of us sat in Mark's home office. I placed the shoebox on his desk. "What's this?" he asked. "Letters. From our father to you. I found them in his attic." Mark stared at the box like it might explode. "He wrote to me? For years. Your mother returned them all unopened. But he kept trying." With shaking hands, Mark opened the box. Started reading. Rachel sat beside him, her hand on his back, as he went through letter after letter. I watched his face cycle through emotions. Anger. Sadness. Confusion. Something that might have been relief. When he finished, he looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. He thought about me. Every day, apparently. My mother never told me. She returned every letter without telling me they existed. She was protecting you, like Sarah was protecting me. Like everyone seems to think they need to protect everyone else from the truth. Mark laughed bitterly. The irony is I would have responded. If I'd known he was reaching out, I would have written back. We could have had something. Maybe not a traditional father-son relationship, but something. "Why do you think your mother didn't tell you?" "Because she was afraid I'd choose him over her. That I'd resent her for keeping us apart initially. Or maybe she just couldn't forgive him, even if I could have." He picked up one of the letters, tracing our father's handwriting. "I spent my whole life thinking he forgot about me. That I meant nothing to him. You meant everything to him. He just didn't know how to bridge the gap he'd created." Rachel spoke up quietly. "Maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that he left, but that he never figured out how to come back. We stayed up until 3 in the morning talking about our father, about the man he was and the man he could have been, about forgiveness and failure and family. By the end of it, I didn't hate Richard Mitchell anymore. I just felt sad for him, for all of us, for the years we'd lost to pride and fear and secrets. The next morning, Mark drove me to a cemetery on the north side of Seattle. We stood in front of Patricia Davidson's grave, flowers in hand. "I wish I could have met her," I said. "She would have liked you. She always said she hoped you were being loved and cared for." Mark placed his flowers on the grave. "I used to resent that she could be so generous toward the family that had replaced us. But now I understand it. She didn't want me to grow up bitter." "Did it work?" "Mostly, though I had my moments." He smiled. "Teenage me was very angry, college me too. But somewhere along the way, I realized that anger was a cage I'd built for myself." I placed my flowers next to his. "Thank you for building a bridge when you could have built walls. Thank you for crossing it." We flew back together, Mark extending his trip to meet Sarah properly and see where I lived. He met my mother, which was awkward and emotional and necessary. She cried and apologized, and Mark, graciously, kindly, told her he understood. "You were young," he said. "You made the best choice you could at the time. I can't hold that against you." But I could see in my mother's face that she would hold it against herself for the rest of her life. Some guilt doesn't get absolved. It just gets carried. 3 months later, Sarah and I stood at Seattle-Tacoma Airport with Mark, Rachel, Emma, and Tyler, saying goodbye after a week-long visit. The kids had shown us everything. Pike Place Market, the Space Needle, their favorite ice cream place. We'd laughed and talked and built memories from scratch. As we hugged goodbye, Emma asked, "Will you come back soon, Uncle Jake?" Uncle Jake. The title still felt new, but it was settling in, becoming real. "Definitely," I promised. On the plane home, Sarah took my hand. "You okay?" "Yeah, I think I am. It's been quite a few months." That's an understatement. I looked out the window at Seattle disappearing below us. "I keep thinking about that morning, when I accused you of having an affair. How sure I was that I knew what was happening. You did know something was happening. You just didn't know what. But I was so ready to believe the worst. Of you, of us. I'd convinced myself our marriage was falling apart. It was falling apart, just not for the reasons you thought. I was lying to you, keeping secrets. That's its own kind of betrayal. Are we okay now? Really okay?" Sarah thought about it. "We're getting there. Therapy's helping. And I think almost losing each other made us realize what we had. I love you. You know that, right?" "I know. I love you too." 6 months after meeting Mark, we all gathered at my mother's house in Minnesota for Thanksgiving. My mother, Sarah, and me, Mark and his family. 3 generations trying to become one family. My mother had put up photos, old ones of my father, but also new ones of Mark and his family. Bridging the gap, acknowledging the truth. Emma found a photo of my father from the 70s. "Grandpa Richard looks like Dad." It was the first time any of them had called him Grandpa. Mark's eyes met mine across the room. We both understood what a moment this was. "He does," Mark said softly. "He really does." That night, after everyone else was asleep, Mark and I sat on my mother's back porch with beers, looking at the stars. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Sarah hadn't agreed to be the go-between?" Mark asked. "If I'd just shown up at your door one day? Honestly, I probably would have slammed it in your face. I wasn't ready. I needed time to process. That's what I was afraid of. But now I'm glad you persisted. I'm glad you didn't give up on finding me, even when it seemed impossible. I'm glad you didn't give up on us. On this." He gestured vaguely at the house, the family inside. "It would have been easier to stay angry, to reject me because of what our father did. Maybe, but easier isn't always better." We sat in comfortable silence, 2 brothers who'd found each other despite everything designed to keep them apart. "I have something for you," Mark said suddenly. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. I've been carrying this around for weeks, trying to find the right moment. Inside was a photo, our father with Patricia young and happy, and a birth certificate, Mark's original birth certificate before it was amended to remove our father's name. I want you to have these, Mark said. You should know the whole story, not just the version our parents told us. I stared at the photo, at our father's face, so young, so full of hope and fear. What do you want his legacy to be? I asked. For your kids. For any kids Sarah and I might have someday. How do we tell this story? Mark considered it. The truth, that he was flawed, that he made terrible choices, but also that he tried, in his way, to make things right, that he thought about me every day, that he loved both of us, even if he didn't know how to love both of us at the same time. That's generous. It's honest. People are complicated. They fail and they try and they fail again. Our father was just a person, not a villain, not a saint, just a person who made mistakes and lived with them. The next morning, over breakfast, Emma asked about our father, about her grandfather she'd never meet. Mark and I looked at each other, then told her the truth, the complicated, messy, beautiful truth, about choices and consequences, about secrets and forgiveness, about family finding its way back together. She listened intently, then said, So we almost didn't know you, Uncle Jake? That's right. I'm glad we do now. Me too, kiddo. Me too. 3 years later, Sarah and I welcomed our daughter into the world. We named her Patricia, after the grandmother she'd never meet but whose strength and grace had made this family possible. Mark and Rachel flew down to meet her, bringing Emma and Tyler. My mother came too. 3 generations, connected despite everything that should have kept them apart. As I held my daughter, surrounded by family, I thought about that morning in the kitchen, when I'd accused Sarah of betrayal, when my world had shattered and reformed into something I never could have imagined. I'd been right that Sarah was keeping secrets. I'd been right that those secrets would change everything. I'd just been completely wrong about what those secrets were. And somehow, that mistake had given me the greatest gift I never knew I needed. A brother, a bigger family, a more complicated, more honest, more real understanding of who I was and where I came from. Sarah caught my eye across the room as Mark held Patricia, introducing her to her cousins. She smiled. I smiled back. We'd made it through, not unscathed, but together, stronger for the breaking and mending. That's the thing about betrayal. Sometimes it's not what you think it is. Sometimes the truth that destroys you is also the truth that saves you. Sometimes the secret that tears your world apart is actually the key to making it whole. I never did tell Mark that I'd initially thought Sarah was having an affair with him. Some truths are better left unsaid. Some moments of stupidity don't need to be confessed. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that alternate universe where Sarah really was cheating, where Mark was just some guy stealing my wife, where I'd lost my marriage instead of gaining a brother. And I'm grateful. Grateful for the truth, however painful. Grateful for family, however complicated. Grateful for Sarah's terrible decision to keep secrets, because those secrets led us here, to this moment, this family, this life. It wasn't the life I thought I had, but it's the life I was always supposed to have. And that's enough.
Wow. That was an incredibly intense and emotional story. Thank you for trusting us and sharing such a personal and painful experience with such honesty. Your journey, from betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, to reclaiming your life and dignity, is truly powerful, and I know it will resonate with many of our viewers who have faced similar struggles. To everyone watching, this story is a reminder of the strength we all have inside us, even in the darkest moments. If Michael's story moved you, made you think, or helped you reflect on your own life, I encourage you to leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your experiences, or simply your support. It all matters. And don't forget to subscribe to When She Broke Us for more raw, real, and unfiltered stories of betrayal, resilience, and personal growth. Every story here reminds us that even through pain, there's a way to reclaim our power and dignity. Thank you for watching, and remember, your strength is greater than any betrayal, and your voice deserves to be heard.